Okay. Alright, y'all, here's what we're going to do. We're going to solve this equation, or this system equation, two separate ways. We're going to start out by solving using substitution. Okay, once we've gone through that process and showed you what to do with it, remind you, make sure everybody's on the same page with it, then we're going to solve this using elimination and kind of compare the two. Talk about what works better, what's a little harder about it, that kind of stuff. Okay, so if I'm solving this using substitution, what's my initial goal here? Okay, first step is to get a variable by itself. So which variable looks like it would be the easiest to get by itself?
Y.
If I'm using the first equation, it'd be the y. If I'm using the second equation, it'd be the x. But both of those are about the same. Okay, so it doesn't matter which one of those two you use, they're both about the same. Okay? So let's solve for x in a second. To get x by itself, I just need to add y to both sides. So x equals 10 plus y. All right. So once I have a variable by itself, what's the next step? You substitute it back into the other equation for that variable. So I'm going to take this 10 plus y and plug it back in for x there. Okay? So 2 times 10 plus y equals 8. So 2 times 10 plus y equals 8. All right, what's the next step? Distribute. Okay, distribute. We're going to multiply the 2. Hey, y'all, if y'all could stop the talking, that'd be helpful, please. We're going to multiply the 2 times everything inside the parentheses. So 2 times 10 is 20. 2 times y is 2y. We still have our plus y, and we still have our equals 8. Okay. Next step, combine your like terms. So 20 plus 3y equals 8. Okay. Next, subtract 20 from both sides. 3y equals negative 12. And then you finish the y off by dividing both sides by 3. Y equals negative 4.
Hold on. How you get that 3? Wasn't there supposed to be a negative sign?
Yeah, by the 12, that's a negative.
Where did you get the 3 from?
2y plus y. So 2y plus 1y is 3y. Okay. All right. So y equals negative 4. So then I'm going to take -4 and plug it in for y in this equation. So x equals 10 plus a -4, so x equals 6. I'm moving. I got to put 2/3 back in for x and for the equations. Yes. Yeah, where is it? So you didn't take it home to work on it? You didn't take it home? Okay.
I was doing it in my class.
All right. Y'all, what questions do you have on this? Okay. So now we're going to the 3-step. Not sure what that's asking. Okay. All right. Let's look at. All right. Let's look at this same problem, except we're going to do what's called elimination this time. Okay. And what you have to do when you're looking to eliminate a variable is on one of the variables, you need to have the exact same coefficient, but they're opposites. Okay? So like on the x's, you would need them both to be a 2x, but one will be positive, one will be negative. So in this problem, the y's both have a coefficient of 1, but one of them's negative, one of them's positive. That works. That's what we're trying to figure out. Okay, that's what we want. And so when that happens, when you have a positive and a negative of the same number on a variable, then what you do is you just add the two equations together. Okay? They're in the order x, y, constant. So all I'm going to do is add our equations together. When I do that, okay, hey y'all, there's a lot of little conversations that need to stop, please. When I do this, 2x plus x is 3x. Y plus a negative y cancels out. 8 plus 10 is 18. Divide by 3 and you get x equals 6. So to get the first solution, instead of taking half this page and part of this side over here and do 2 columns of stuff here, it's like a 2-step thing. Okay, that's especially if the variable has already got an opposite coefficient. So the coefficients are the same, just opposites. Now, once you've done this, you still got to go back in and plug this in to get the y. So I'd go that first equation, 2 times 6 plus y equals 8. So 12 plus y equals 8. Get the y by itself by subtracting 12, and I get y equals -4. So you still have to go back and do the substitution in, but to get that first one is where the difference is. Yes. Yes, this is using elimination. Where the last one was solving using substitution, this one's solving using elimination. Okay. How do you what?
I see you use calculator.
Alright. So here's where we stand. There's two methods that we learned. Actually, there's three. One is drafting and finding the spot where they intersect. That's not always a very good way, for sure. But the first method we learned was using substitution. Y'all, the time when that was the easiest is when there's already a variable solved. If there's already a variable completely by itself, it's still easier to use that than it is to use elimination. Elimination is easier if you already have a coefficient that's the same but opposite. So in this case, you had a 1y and a negative 1y. So the numbers were the same, but the signs were different. If you had that, it's always easier to use elimination. Okay? So a lot of times when you get to like an ACT or something that tells you to solve this system or find the values of the variables, they're not going to tell you which method to use. Okay, they're just going to tell you to solve, and you're going to have to figure out what's easiest. What can you do? And so that's going to be a little bit on you. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into Monday and Tuesday. Yes. Did you hear my thing? Did I cut all my hair off? I mean, I buzzed it down. It's not all the way off, but I buzzed it down. No, but it's pretty close. I cut it down to like a size 1 on the razor. So it's almost nothing when I did it. I did cut all this off. It's about, I think it's over Thanksgiving. So it's been a month and a half. I usually cut it off every 3 Alright. Questions? Hey y'all, listen, questions over this method so far. Okay, we will put some steps up. The steps are pretty simple. There are not a lot of steps to it. So yeah. Alright. Let's all right. Hey y'all, which of these problems from the assignment would you like to see work? 37? I've heard a lot of people with the last 3 were kind of frustrating. All right, so
do 35.
So we gotta do the rest of them?
all right. We'll start with 37, and then the other one I heard was 34. And y'all, almost every time I come over here to write on my little sheet, it's because somebody's got a phone out or somebody's talking way too much. So those are the 2 things I've been taking off.
What did they talk about?
depending on the volume at that point, but if you're just helping somebody with it, no. And just talking one time, I will never come over here and do that. Now your phone out, I will, but talking, it just depends on the volume and the moment that that's happening. At that moment, I walked over to put down because somebody's on my phone. Okay, so here is number 37. Okay, what variable is the easiest to solve for here? Probably x in the first equation. Okay, so to do that, to get x by itself there, I would need to add 5y to both sides. So that would give me x equals 2 plus 5y.
Don't knock on her door.
Hey y'all. Y'all can hear me talking through. Y'all can't hear through y'all talking to each other. Yes. I can't. Hey y'all. Oh, say it again. Oh, right here, the 5y plus 2. Honestly, it doesn't matter. If you get more comfortable with that, that's easier for you to do it that way. That's fine. So this, you know what he's saying? This is the same thing as saying x equals 5y plus 2. You can flip-flop that around, and I think a lot of y'all are more comfortable with that because you've seen it that way more. For what I like, this usually makes more sense to me, and so I just leave it like that. And I want you to get used to it being a different form. So we're going to now take this and plug it in for that x. So 9 times 2 plus 5y plus 8 equals 15y. Okay, so now I just have y's to work with. I don't have the x anymore. So I can solve and get a value for y. So 18 plus 45y plus 8 equals 15y. All right, so that step, all I did was distribute the 9. And now I need to get the variables together. Do what? Well, this step, that's all I did. I needed to get rid of the parentheses.
Oh my God.
All right. So now I need to get my variables together. So I'm going to move the y over here. I know a lot of people, when they work this problem, are moving the 15y that direction. If you do that, just remember that there has to be a 0 over here. A lot of people just lose the equal sign when they do that. And so it kind of messes things up. Right. If you would have subtracted the 15y from over here, you would see to make sure you had a 0 over here. Okay, I don't do that normally. I don't try to put a 0, and so I don't normally subtract something if that's the only thing over there. So that's 26 equals negative 30y, and then I'm going to divide both sides by negative 30. So y equals negative 13 over 15. All right, so here's the problem that I've seen. Here's the problem I've seen. A lot of people, when they see a fraction like this, they just kind of stop and think they got it wrong, so they just don't do it anymore. 26 over 30 can be simplified. You use a calculator and put it in, and it just simplifies it for you, especially if you use your little fraction button. And then when you go back and plug back into your original equation, it's going to it'll be a lot easier also. So that's y. Y is negative 13/15. So I'm going to plug negative 13 15 in for y right there. So x equals 2 plus 5 times negative 13 15.
Mr. Davis,
Yes.
it's how you the X the X is.
Do what now? You don't really put the x equals, you just put this part over here. And then just put equals and that'll give you what x is. So in your calculator, you would just type this in the way it's written using the fraction button for the negative 13 15. I will do it without it real quick. Yeah, I will do this without it. Just 2 plus. Sorry, that should be a minus. Well, 2 plus a negative 13 over 3.
What?
5 times a negative 13 15 is a negative 13 over 3. So 6, this ends up being a negative 7/3, which is a negative 2 1/3. So my solution is negative 2 1/3, negative 13 15. Again, it's not a real pretty fraction, but that's the setup for that problem. Okay, this is the kind of problem that first off, graphing would not help you at all because there's no way you could figure out where negative 2 1/3 and negative 13 15 is on the graph. Unless you understand how to use your calculator really, really, really well. There is a way to do it. But
So, could you show us a way to do
so if I subtracted the 15y, 18 plus 8 is still 26. 45y minus 15y is 30y. But then when you do over here, 15y minus 15y is 0. So just don't forget to put that 0 when you subtract something out. That's kind of the point. So at this point, you can subtract the 30 or the 26. And so it ends up being the same process. No, not until you do that subtraction. But a lot of people like to move that 15 over, and so I wanted to state it out loud. I don't like to do that. That's a lot. All right, questions? The way I did it? I think it's a little bit easier to do with the 0. But so many of my students forget to put the 0 there that I just don't ever do that. And I always try to get the variables together and kind of by themselves at the same time I can. So when I move the 45 over, the variables are together and it's by itself over here. If I move the 15 over, then the variables together, but there's other stuff with it. And so that's why I move it the other side. Any other questions? Okay, so here's what will happen. On Monday next week, we will do number 34, and then we will do about 4 or 5 more elimination problems, and talk about the process. On Tuesday next week, I'm going to have y'all working some problems on the board more than likely, where a couple of y'all will go up at a time, working a few problems. Let's talk through them, see what's going on. And get ready for our assignment on that. Then Wednesday and Thursday we'll continue that. My thoughts right now are that we will have a quiz next Friday, but I'm not promising that. That's the way it's looking at the moment. Okay? Over substitution and elimination. So I want to make sure you've got some time to get it and some time in class to ask questions. But I don't want to say that it is going to be them or not. Any other questions?